Hello everyone, Uncle Mark here. Thanks for dropping by. Now, as both a list lover and a pop music lover, I always love reading and watching best and worst song lists. And when it comes to best lists, I recently found a website called acclaimmusic.net created by a Swedish statistician. Try saying that 5 times fast. Swedish statistician, Swedish statistician, Swedish statistician, Swedish statistician, Swedish statistician, who has taken hundreds of lists to create a database of the most critically acclaimed albums and songs of all times, which he also separates into decade, year, genres, and subgenres. There are some songs listed among the best, which I would actually list among the worst ever. But even with that, it's a very comprehensive mega list, considering the songs stretch to 10,000. And when you dig in, you'd see that a good number of these songs never hit the top 40 or even the top 100 on Billboard. So I'm starting a new series in which I will create lists of 10 songs that I think should have hit the charts. Some may be classics, some may be personal favorites. I will be focusing on genres, though that may change. Let me know in the comments what genre you'd be interested in seeing, but for my first list, I will focus on one of my favorite genres and one which will have plenty of songs to choose from for future lists. And maybe you can get a little hint by this hair. Now, New Wave might be considered the artier form of punk, since many of its famous artists were considered nerdy intellectuals, including David Byrne, Elvis Costello, Sting. When synthesizers took their place as musical instruments, most New Wave hits would have a futuristic, edgy feel to them. You think of, say, Cars by Gary Newman and Don't You Want Me by The Human League. The music would evolve over time, and the herky-jerky staccato tempos would give way to more standard styles, including New Romantic. The songs I'll be focusing on this list span from 1977 to 1982. So let's get started with an artist who finally got her first top 10 hit in 2022, 37 years after the song was first released.
If only could, I'd make a deal with God, and I'd get him to swap our places.
Thanks to Stranger Things, Kate Bush has found new fans with her beautifully haunting Running Up That Hill, one of my favorite songs of the 80s. But that song peaked at number 30 during its initial release, so it wouldn't make this list. Her first foray into the top 100 does.
I hear him before I go to sleep and focus on the day that's been.
It may be hard to believe, but her only appearance on U.S. television was on Saturday Night Live back in 1978 after The Man with the Child in His Eyes was released. I remember watching her on that episode and being floored by her. She was atypical of all the female pop singers I was used to seeing or hearing. She wasn't a Linda Ronstadt or a Donna Summer. And considering she had written the song a few years earlier when she was 13 years old, shows surprising maturity. She has stated in interviews how she'd look at older men and envied them for being able to retain boyishness well into adulthood, which is what inspired her to write this. Now, whether this song could become a hit now? Well, that's hard to say. Could a teen woman get away with singing about a relationship or wanting a relationship with a significantly older man? If it sounded as sweet and lyrical as this, maybe?
He's here again, the man with a child in his eyes.
Now we go to a song which features Kate Bush as a backup vocalist. Now, for the longest time, I thought she was singing She's So Funky, Yeah. What was I hearing? I'm hearing my cat.
Hans plays with Lottie, Lottie plays with Jane, Jane plays with Willie, Willie is happy again.
Peter Gabriel took a little time off after he left Genesis to figure out what he wanted to do with his career. He'd gotten a lot of criticism for being known more for his stage costumes than for his music. He went back to recording after learning how to play the piano. His first 2 solo albums made the top 10 in the UK, but his third one reached number 1, and this song peaked at number 4 there. The title is borrowed from an early reality show competition telecast in Europe called Jeux sans frontières, which featured cities battling against each other to see who'd finish out on top. The British version of the show was called It's a Knockout, which is also featured in the lyrics. Peter used the premise of the show to create an anti-war song, using a variety of foreign names to represent as many nationalities, and the idea of play as a more genteel form of combat, with the underlying idea of how things can get too far. Now, this may be one of the few songs where I enjoy the whistling, which sounds both playful and troop-like at the same time, fitting the overall theme.
Whistling tunes we hide in the dunes by the seaside.
The song may not have been as popular in the US since anti-war songs reached their peak during the Vietnam War, but this remains an alternative rock classic and is always worth listening and hearing. Since the last song was sung partially in French, let's talk about an overlooked gem sung almost all in French.
Allez hop, un matin, une louloute est venue chez moi, poupée de cellophane, cheveux chinois, un sparadrap, une gueule de bois, a bu ma bière dans un grand verre en caoutchouc.
I had never heard Ça plane pour moi until recently, although I remembered reading the Billboard charts when this was hitting and wondering what this song was. It wasn't played on any local stations, and I can't imagine why not, as it's just pure fun. The song is considered a punk parody, and the English translation of the lyrics reflects that, with our narrator telling us about how well his life is going when it really isn't. The combination of the raucous three-chord punk guitars, a Beach Boys falsetto, and the talk singing of Monsieur Bertrand create a piece of music that's meant for you to dance by jumping up and down and occasionally swinging your arms. This is the earliest song on the list, released in 1977, so New Wave was just getting its footing. And bands like The Clash, U2, and R.E.M. would take guitar-driven forms of New Wave further. And if you're going to listen to a French song, wouldn't you rather hear this one than Dominique?
Enflamma de toute école, filles et garçons pleins d'ardeur, et pour semer la parole, inventa les frères prêcheurs.
So we've had a song sung partially in French, a song sung mostly in French. Why not a French album? Or at least the title. In this case, we're referring to Regatta de Blanc, the second album by my all-time favorite band, The Police, and the first single released from it.
Just to cast away, island lost at sea.
Message in a Bottle would be their first UK #1 and continues their early style of white reggae, which is what the album title is supposed to mean. The song for me is an allegory about loneliness and deprivation. Although the lyrics speak literally about an island castaway, think Tom Hanks, not Gilligan, it could refer to anyone who feels isolated and is throwing out a message looking for a response. Sometimes it doesn't come right away, but once it does, the floodgates can open and overwhelm you, hence the 100 billion bottles.
100 billion bottles washed up on the shore. Seems I've never known it being alone.
And the final hook is classic.
Send it out an SOS. Send it out an SOS.
Years later, the band members still consider it one of their best songs. Even the stripped-down acoustic version of the song packs a punch. It is absolutely one of my favorites of theirs, and it really should have been a much bigger hit in the United States.
Sending out an SOS. Sending out an SOS. Sending out an SOS.
I swear this will be the last song that has anything French themed. In this case, we're referring to the popular form of transportation around Paris. Although if she wakes in London, she'd be taking the Eurostar.
I'm alone, sitting with my empty glass. My old walls follow me through my past.
Most people, I expect, associate New Wave with heavy synth tracks and fast BPMs like this one. In this case, the fast rhythm is meant to remind you of the travel and movement of the high-speed train. The European ambulance sound coming and going also gives you that feeling.
Riding on the metro.
The lyrics are about a woman being unable to keep a relationship going and knowing she's the one at fault, and she is the one giving apologies that the man has to swim through and hating the man for loving her. I enjoy the ambiguousness in the lyrics, and Terry Nunn's voice relays these feelings perfectly. didn't pop radio embrace songs like this one more? I mean, even though Berlin would hit number one with Take My Breath Away, I think it pales in comparison to this. The next two songs on my list are remakes of R&B classics. Our first one was originally recorded by Barrett Strong and is considered the first Motown hit.
The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I need fun. That's what I want.
Sure doesn't sound like Motown here.
The best things in life are free, but you can give them to the birds and bees. I want money. That's what I want.
If there's a word to describe this version, I'd say freaky, but in the best way possible. This song is full of experimental sonic distortions, from what sounds like garbage can lids banging to the piercing whoops at the end. But what I absolutely love about this is Deborah Evans Strickland's lead vocal, which is so matter-of-fact and blasé about anything other than her need for money. In a time before yuppies became a thing, she embodied the ideal by talking about it instead of singing. This song has appeared in soundtracks for The Wedding Singer and Charlie's Angels, and on episodes of WKRP in Cincinnati, SCTV, Nip Tuck, and Family Guy. I hope it made them enough money. The second cover was originally done by Lee Dorsey and was his second biggest hit, peaking at number 8.
Working in a coal mine, going down, down, down. Working in a coal mine, whoop, about to step down.
For this band, this was also their second biggest hit, but it peaked at number 43.
Well, I've been working in a coal mine, going down, down. Working in a coal mine, whoop, about to step down.
For the casual fan, Devo can be known for their one top 40 hit Whip It, or for Mark Mothersbaugh's work on Rugrats, or their famous costumes. But as someone who remembers watching their appearance on Saturday Night Live and their hyper version of Satisfaction, I had hoped the band would become bigger than they ended up being. The band puts their unique spin on this song, speeding up the tempo so much it would have sounded perfect on the 20-minute workout. Does anyone else remember that show? This song was part of them broadening their sound to a more dance form of new wave, and this actually peaked at number 30 on the dance charts. Isn't it weird to think that Akron, Ohio gave us this band, The Waitresses, and Chrissie Hynde of the Pretenders? Who would have thought Akron would be one of the central cities of new wave? You know where else was a central city of new wave? Athens, Georgia. And although there are two famous bands associated with the city, only one created the greatest surf punk rock horror song that needs to be on everyone's Halloween party playlists.
We were at a party.
Here's another band I first saw on Saturday Night Live back in the day. I think the show was more experimental with their musical guests back then, so even though they'd have current pop stars like Paul Simon and James Taylor appearing, they'd also feature artists like Kate Bush, Devo, and the B-52s, who were new and appealing to younger audiences, even if they weren't tearing up the charts. And Rock Lobster was a song unlike any I'd heard before. Right off the bat, the guitar work of the Gone Too Soon Ricky Wilson pulled you in with its spooky twang, and then Kate Pearson's equally menacing keyboard and her and Cindy Wilson's vocals and Fred Schneider's narrative. I can't describe enough the feeling I get from this, especially once you get to the last third of the song where the guitar becomes frenetic, the female vocals impersonate sea creatures. This may be my favorite song on the entire list. It is over the top and maybe even a little campy, but it is a song that I play over and over again, and not even just for Halloween. Let's take this down for a little bit. If there was ever such a thing as chill new wave, this song would be a prime example. The Psychedelic Furs are an underrated band, only hitting the US Top 40 pop charts once, although this actually did peak at number 40 on the dance chart. Even in their native UK, they only hit the top 40 twice. Yet songs like Pretty in Pink, Heaven, The Ghost in You, they're still getting regular airplay on Sirius XM's new wave station, among others. Now, as far as the song for me, I love the dreamy feel brought by the synths and the marimba played by the song producer, Rock and Roll Hall of Famer Todd Rundgren. And Richard Butler's raspy, breathy vocals add to its appeal.
They just want to steal us all and take us all apart. Love my way, it's a new road.
For the lyrics, what turned out to be a pleasant surprise for me was finding out it's a queer anthem. I hadn't paid much attention to the lyrics when I was younger, but Richard stated in an interview it was originally written for gay people to tell us not to worry about what others think. And for someone who's not queer himself to write and record a song like this could have been risky, but it paid off. Just not with the top 40 showing. Our final song comes from quite possibly the greatest American new wave band, and the nerdiest. While many other new wave artists would be experimenting with outrageous clothing and hairstyles to match their music, the clean-cut look of the Talking Heads may have been the most subversive of all. They dressed like students, they dressed like housewives, or in a suit and a tie.
Heard of a band that's loaded with weapons, packed up and ready to go.
Life During Wartime, etc. is one of my favorite song styles where the cognitive dissonance of serious lyrics and bouncy music combine to jolt your senses. This song was released after their first top 40 hit, a remake of Al Green's Take Me to the River. This was part of their collaboration with producer Brian Eno, who convinced them to diversify their style and incorporate psychedelic funk and world rhythms from Africa. The dark musings of the lyrics talk about a dystopian world where the singer and his other become transient survivalists against whatever forces have taken over, and the harsh reality that their former carefree life is over. One of the biggest ironies of the song is how many considered it an anti-disco song, and even though it didn't reach the dance charts, how could you listen to this and not think it wasn't influenced by disco? It's been even compared to another apocalyptic funk song, Prince's 1999. The band would end up with only 3 top 40 hits during their time, but there are so many classic songs to go over, I could create a list of just their music alone. And if you've never seen their concert movie Stop Making Sense, please watch it. It is truly one of the greatest concert movies ever.
You make me shiver, I feel so tender. We make a pretty good team. Don't get exhausted, I'll do some driving. You wanna get you some sleep.
Well, there you have it. And I've only scratched the surface for new wave. I mean, I could have included classics like I Melt With You, I Don't Like Mondays, I Know What Boys Like, Ay. So many more songs I would love to introduce or reintroduce to you. Let me know in the comments if there's a song you'd like to see included for a future video, and it doesn't have to be new wave, just make sure it's never hit the top 40 or even the top 100. Don't forget to click the like button, hit the bell for future notifications, and please subscribe to my channel. I'm Uncle Mark, and I look forward to your next visit.